On July 8, 1991, a winter Thursday in Rio de Janeiro, Márcia Regina Martins, a 34-year-old social worker, left her apartment in Copacabana. She was heading out for a solo hike on Pedra da Gávea, one of the city's most imposing landmarks. The sky was partly cloudy with a mild temperature of 20 degrees Celsius and gentle winds, conditions considered favorable for hiking in the region according to that day's meteorological reports. Márcia, an employee of Rio's Municipal Secretariat of Social Assistance, was known by her friends and family as an independent woman and a lover of nature. Single and living alone, she often spent her free time on the trails. That morning, she wore jeans, a white t-shirt, and a light jacket. She carried a backpack containing water, fruit, a small camera, and a first aid kit. Items that would later be detailed in a police report. According to her sister, Eliana Martins, Márcia had mentioned during a family dinner 2 days earlier that she needed to clear her head. She saw the climb up Pedra da Gávea as a way to reconnect with herself. Her colleagues reported that she had been going through a stressful period, dealing with a particularly difficult case involving vulnerable children in the Complexo da Maré. The last confirmed contact with Márcia was at 7:43 that morning, when she sent a text message to her sister. After that, her phone showed no further activity. The Pedra da Gávea trail, located in Tijuca National Park, is approximately 3 kilometers long and takes about 3 hours to reach the summit. At 842 meters high, it is considered moderately to highly difficult, with steep sections and rocky passages that require basic climbing skills. In 1991, the trail was far less monitored than it is today, with no checkpoints to log visitors in and out. The alarm was not raised until 10 p.m. that night, when Márcia failed to return home and did not answer her sister's repeated calls. Worried by the unusual silence, Eliana went to the 15th Military Police Battalion in Copacabana to report her sister missing. The first search began the following morning, July 9th, with a team of 8 military police officers, 3 firefighters specializing in wilderness rescue, and 2 local guides who knew the area well. The weather had changed drastically. A light rain and dense fog now shrouded Pedra da Gávea, significantly hampering the search efforts for the first 48 hours. For 3 days, rescue teams scoured the main paths and adjacent areas with search dogs, but found nothing. On the 4th day, July 22nd, they found a water bottle. The family identified it as Márcia's. It was discovered near a fork in the main trail, about 1.5 kilometers from the start. This discovery redirected the search toward the eastern face of Pedra da Gávea, a steeper and less traveled area. This region, known as the ship's face for its resemblance to a vessel's prow, presented additional challenges. The dense vegetation, combined with steep slopes of up to 70 degrees, made the work extremely dangerous. On July 25th, a week after her disappearance, Inspector Arnaldo Bittencourt of the Missing Persons Bureau took over the case. In his first press conference, he outlined 3 main lines of investigation: a hiking accident, a premeditated crime, or a voluntary disappearance. "We are working with multiple possibilities," the inspector told reporters. "The first and most likely is an accident on the trail, given the dangerous terrain and the fact that she was alone. The second is the criminal hypothesis, which we cannot rule out. And the third, less likely but still needing verification, is that she vanished intentionally." The investigation took a new turn when Renato Silveira, a former colleague of Márcia's, revealed in his statement that she had been troubled by her work. According to Renato, Márcia had uncovered irregularities at a children's home in the north zone of Rio, an institution with ties to local politicians. She was restless in her final weeks. Renato stated in his deposition on July 29th. She said she had discovered something serious and was preparing a detailed report, but she didn't give me specifics. This information led the police to request access to the files at the Municipal Secretariat of Social Assistance. However, they hit a significant roadblock. The folder containing the documents for that specific case had disappeared from the archives. The absence of these papers temporarily strengthened the criminal theory. While the police investigated the possible connection to her work, the search on Pedra da Gávea continued for 15 consecutive days before being scaled back to intermittent efforts. Firefighters used rappelling techniques to access steeper areas and caves that could have served as a shelter or the site of a fall. In August 1991, a seemingly promising lead emerged when a group of hikers reported seeing a woman matching Márcia's description in a rural community in Teresópolis, a mountain town about 90 kilometers from Rio. Police teams were mobilized, but after a 3-day investigation, they concluded it was a case of mistaken identity. One element that puzzled investigators was that none of Márcia's personal belongings, aside from the water bottle, were ever found. Her backpack, documents, camera, and even her clothes seemed to have vanished from the mountain. This lack of physical evidence made it impossible to reach any definitive conclusion. In October 1991, after nearly 3 months of intensive investigation, the police received an anonymous tip through a newly implemented hotline. The caller, who was never identified, claimed to have seen Márcia boarding an intercity bus to São Paulo, accompanied by an unidentified man 2 days after her disappearance. This briefly revived the theory of a voluntary departure. But checks with bus companies confirmed no ticket purchase in her name, and the poor quality security footage from the terminals revealed nothing. As the months went by, the case gradually faded from the media and the police department's priorities. In February 1992, it was classified as an ongoing but unresolved case. Márcia's family, frustrated with the slowing pace of the investigation, hired a private detective, Claudio Mendes, a former civil police officer with experience in missing persons cases. Mendes re-interviewed everyone involved and retraced the route Márcia had likely taken. In his preliminary report delivered to the family in May 1992, he raised a possibility that had not been fully explored, that Márcia might have strayed onto a secondary trail, one easily mistaken for the main path at a certain point. Years passed with no significant breakthroughs. Márcia's family kept the search for answers alive, holding a symbolic walk on Pedra da Gávea every year on the anniversary of her disappearance, handing out flyers with her photo. Her sister, Eliana, became an activist for the cause of missing people, founding the NGO Recomeço in 1995, which continues to help hundreds of families in similar situations today. Then in July 2001, 10 years after Márcia vanished, a new element surfaced. During the renovation of a police station in downtown Rio, workers found boxes of old documents. Among them was a preliminary report signed by Márcia herself, dated 2 weeks before her disappearance. The document, which had never been attached to the original inquiry, contained detailed information about alleged embezzlement and mistreatment of minors at the institution managed by a foundation linked to a city councilman of that era. The reports of psychological and physical violence are consistent among the children interviewed. Márcia had written, "There are indications that funds intended for food and school supplies are being systematically diverted. I recommend immediate intervention and the removal of the current board." Inspector Roberto Andrade, who took over the case after the report's discovery, officially reopened the investigation. "This document significantly changes our perspective," he announced at a press conference. We will thoroughly investigate the possible connection between the social worker's job and her disappearance. The reopened case led investigators to Carlos Mendonça, the former director of the institution mentioned in Marcia's report, who had since moved to the interior of Minas Gerais. Mendonça vehemently denied any involvement, claiming he didn't even know Marcia personally. His alibi was partially corroborated by records showing he was in Brasilia on the day of her disappearance, attending a conference. While the professional motive was being re-examined, an unexpected event brought a completely new clue to light. In March 2002, a German tourist named Klaus Müller was hiking the Pedra da Gávea trail. He ventured off the main path to photograph a peculiar rock formation. As he approached a small natural cavity in the rock, about 600 meters up the mountain's eastern face, Müller made a disturbing discovery: the tattered remains of a backpack, and next to it a human skull partially covered by vegetation. The tourist immediately called the authorities on his cell phone, a technology unavailable when Marcia disappeared. A specialized rescue team was dispatched to the scene. The area was cordoned off and forensics experts were called in. The initial examination identified other human bones scattered within a 15-meter radius, suggesting that animals might have moved the remains over the years. Alongside the bones, they found fragments of decomposed fabric. A woman's wristwatch stopped at 11:27 and a small camera damaged by prolonged exposure to the elements. The wristwatch was quickly identified by the family as belonging to Marcia. It was a graduation gift from her parents, bearing a small inscription on the back: "To Marcia, our pride, 12/12/1979. This was the crucial link. In June 2002, DNA tests using samples provided by Eliana confirmed what many already suspected. The remains belonged to Márcia Regina Martins. After 11 years, the search had finally tragically come to an end. The forensic analysis of the remains revealed important details about the circumstances of her death. There were no signs of skull fractures or violence on any of the recovered bones. According to the report signed by medical examiner Dr. Paulo Mendes, the most probable cause of death was a fall, likely accidental, from the rocky area adjacent to where the remains were found. The absence of compressive fractures in the skull and the dispersal of the bones suggest the victim may have suffered a fall from a relatively low height, followed by a slide down the slope, the report concluded. The resulting injuries, while perhaps not immediately fatal, could have incapacitated her, leading to death from exposure or dehydration. The camera found with the remains was sent to a specialized data recovery lab. Amazingly, despite the external damage, technicians managed to partially recover the film still inside. Of the 36 exposures, 17 could be developed with enough clarity for analysis. The recovered images showed Marcia's ascent, landscapes of Rio from different altitudes, and several self-portraits, showing her smiling at various points along the trail. The last photo on the roll, with the date and time automatically imprinted by the camera, July 8, 1991, 11:23 a.m., showed a view of the trail that, according to mountaineering experts, clearly indicated that Marcia had diverted onto the secondary path mentioned by the private detective years earlier. This photographic evidence, combined with the location of her remains and the time frozen on her watch, allowed investigators to reconstruct Marcia's probable final moments. The most accepted theory is that she inadvertently took the wrong trail around 11:20 a.m., snapped her last photograph at 11:23 and suffered a fall just minutes later at 11:27, the moment her watch stopped forever. The location where the remains were discovered was an area seldom frequented by hikers. It lay on a small, natural plateau roughly 50 meters below the main trail, partially concealed by dense vegetation. This explained why even the most extensive initial searches had failed to locate Márcia. The official police conclusion, presented in August 2002 by Detective Roberto Andrade, ruled her death an accident, a fatal fall followed by the impossibility of rescue. The investigation into any possible criminal motive connected to Márcia's work was formally closed, citing a lack of conclusive evidence that her disappearance was linked to the allegations she was investigating. The resolution of Márcia Regina Martins's case, while tragic, brought a measure of comfort to her family. They could finally hold a proper funeral and begin the grieving process that had been suspended by years of uncertainty. In September 2002, a simple ceremony brought together family, friends, and former colleagues at the São João Batista Cemetery in Botafogo. During the service, Eliana Martins delivered an emotional eulogy. "Today," she began, "after 11 long years, we can finally say goodbye to my sister. Márcia was a woman who dedicated her life to helping others, and her legacy lives on through the work we do at the Recomeço NGO. The doubt that gnawed at us for all these years now gives way to a certainty. A painful one, but a necessary one for us to move forward." Márcia's case led to significant changes in the safety protocols for the trails of Tijuca National Park. In 2003, the park administration implemented a mandatory registration system for all visitors wishing to hike the more challenging trails, including Pedra da Gávea. Clearer signposts were installed at strategic points, especially at forks that could cause confusion, like the one that possibly led Márcia to her fatal detour. Furthermore, the case influenced the creation of the Márcia Martins Protocol by the Rio de Janeiro State Civil Defense in 2004. This established specific guidelines for searches in dense forests and along coastlines, with an emphasis on the need to repeatedly check areas that had apparently already been cleared. The discovery of Márcia's report on irregularities at the children's institution also had consequences. Although the document was found 10 years after it was written, it served as the basis for an investigation by the Rio de Janeiro State Public Prosecutor's Office. This resulted in the permanent closure of the institution in 2005 and the conviction of 3 former directors for misappropriation of public funds and child neglect. In an unexpected turn, Klaus Müller, the German tourist who found Márcia's remains, returned to Brazil in 2012 to participate in a documentary about the case. During filming, he revealed a disturbing detail he had omitted from his original statement. "When I found the skull," he confessed, "I had a very strange feeling. It wasn't just the shock of the discovery. For a brief moment, I felt as if someone was watching me. It was so intense that I actually turned around to check. There was no one there, of course, but that feeling stayed with me for days." This account, though subjective, fueled alternative theories about the case among paranormal enthusiasts. Some people began to report unusual experiences when passing the spot where Márcia's remains were found, including sudden feelings of unease, temporary disorientation, and even glimpses of a female figure among the trees. In 2015, Márcia's story took on new life when a young hiker, Marina Campos, posted a photograph on social media, taken on the same stretch of trail where Márcia had likely gone astray. In the image, captured at dusk, one can distinguish what appears to be the silhouette of a woman among the trees, in an area where no one else was present at the time. The photograph went viral, and although image analysis experts suggested it was likely a trick of light and shadow, the episode reignited public interest in the case. The NGO, founded by Eliana Martins, grew significantly over the years, becoming a nationally recognized institution for supporting families of the missing. In 2018, the organization was instrumental in the passage of State Law 8.042, known as the Márcia Martins Law. This established more agile and effective procedures for searching for missing persons in the state of Rio de Janeiro, including the creation of an integrated database and the requirement to begin searches immediately, without the previously standard 24-hour waiting period. Today, the case is frequently cited in training courses for police and eco-tourism guides as an example of the importance of safety protocols in natural environments and the meticulousness required in missing persons investigations. If you've watched this far, it means you care about these cases that leave a permanent mark on families. Please leave a comment saying, "I watched to the end," so I can get to know you and see who truly cares about the search for truth. Don't forget to like this video and share it with friends and family who are also interested in real cases that challenge investigators and make us reflect on the fragility of life.